All right, so we have one more step to get our code up on GitHub. We just need to push it up. So if you remember option 1, what we're following here, option 1 out of 2, is to create a new repo on GitHub, which we've done. Connect the local repo by adding a remote to our GitHub repo. We just did that in the previous video. Now we need to push our changes up. So we have our existing repo. I'm doing that stupid Great Gatsby novel fake repo. I created an empty GitHub repo, and then I set my remote called origin so that it points at this empty GitHub repo. So the final step is to push up. So we do this using the git push command. Again, this is not GitHub specific, though everything we'll be pushing to will be a GitHub repo. But the git push command is a Git command. It existed long before GitHub. And there are many other places where you can have a hosted repo that you can push to. So it works with any remote. Basically, the syntax is git push, and then a remote. In our case, we just have one, which is origin, but we can have multiple. So we have to tell Git where we're pushing, what's the destination repository, and what branch to push. So, we might have a really large repo with a ton of branches. Like, actually, we don't have a ton here, but we've got a couple. No, just 2. Oh, well, this is because this repo was created before we went into branching, but some of our repos have 7, 8, maybe 10 branches, and you may not want all of them on GitHub, or you may not want to push them all at once at least. So when we push, we call out a particular branch that we want to send to GitHub. Often that will be your master or main branch, but you can push any branch up to GitHub, and I'll show you that. So this is a really common command, git push origin master, though it is becoming slightly less common as more people rename their master branch to main. If you recall, we talked about this early on when I introduced branching. It now comes up again, master versus main, because GitHub, as I mentioned at the end of 2020, decided to make the default branch name on a GitHub repo main instead of master. So their instructions tell you to add a remote called origin, but then rename your branch, the master branch, to main, and then push main. So I will do this as well in a separate video. I will show this process. It's the exact same process. We rename a branch, we name it main, and then we push up main. But I'm going to start with master just to keep this as simple as possible because we have a master branch, right? We've been working with the term master, so we'll start there first. Okay, so I have this remote called origin, as we already discussed, git remote -v. We see what it's pointing to. And it's always a good idea to see, what we have, if we have any uncommitted changes that won't go up. Otherwise, we're ready. We're going to do a git push, and then origin is where we're pushing to, and then master is the branch we are pushing up. Okay, so this is what our GitHub looks like right now. I'll refresh. There's nothing here except these instructions. This is the repo. But now I'm going to push, and there's going to be a substantial change. And remember, oh gosh, I put images in this repo, didn't I? Well, that's why it's taking a little bit. As you can see here, I have some images in that mood board. Usually you don't include images or at least not large images like I have, but it finished up. Most repos are going to push way, way, way faster than that because they're usually just code. So I'm going to refresh the page. And now we see something entirely different, right? We don't see those instructions. Now we see our file contents. So chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, characters, outline. We see different commits. I'll actually do a separate video where I walk through what we see, but we also have access to things like contributors. We can see there's only one branch, which is the master branch. And I can take a look at chapter 1, for example. Here's the contents of chapter 1. Okay, so we have our code up here. Now what I want to show you is that we can push any branch, right? I talked about pushing master because that's what we have on this project. But if we make a new branch, which I'll just make, what should my branch be called? How about empty or nearly empty? I switch to that branch, and I'm just going to delete pretty much everything in here. I'm going to delete mood board for sure. So that's actually rm-rf to get rid of that. It's a folder. And I'll rm, how about all chapters? So chapter 1, I'll just leave the outline and the characters. So now, whoops, this is all we have. I'm on a branch though called empty, so I'm going to add everything and then git commit, delete most things. Alrighty. Now, if I want to push the code that I just changed, I want to push my last commit from this branch. Remember, I'm on the empty branch. I need to push the empty branch. So let me illustrate that. Here I've got some diagrams. What we just did was we pushed up our master branch to GitHub. So there was nothing on GitHub. I pushed up master. Whoops, I went too far. Git push origin master, assuming our remote is named origin. Now, in this diagram, I have a second branch called new feature. I'm going to push that up. Git push origin new feature. In our case, our branch is called empty. So git push origin empty. I don't have to be on this branch, by the way. I happen to be on it, which is very common, that you're taking a look at what's on a branch and then you push it up, but you don't have to be on it. So git push origin empty. And remember, if it asks you for your password, not a big deal. Put your email and password or your username and password, but go back and check out the SSH video so that it doesn't have to keep bugging you, asking you for a password every time you push. Okay, so now I'm going to refresh. And it doesn't look like much changed, but now we have two branches, and we can see the two branches here, master and empty. And I can switch between them. And this is my empty branch. I'm just viewing it on GitHub. And you'll see it just has two files, right? Go back to master. And I have a whole bunch of stuff. Okay? So I'm going to just go through this process one more time just to make it very clear. I'm going to go back to master, git switch master, and let's make some changes. We'll do some new work here. How about chapter 4.txt? Alrighty, and I'll just leave it blank, I guess. And I'm going to add that. So git add chapter 4, git commit, begin chapter 4. Okay, pop quiz. What's on my GitHub? What's the most recent commit that I'll see on the GitHub repo? Nothing has changed on GitHub. It's still exactly the same. If we're looking at the master branch, nothing's changed. If we're looking at the empty branch, nothing has changed since we last pushed. GitHub doesn't just stay in sync automatically with my local repo. I have to push. So why don't I push up that commit? Chapter 4, begin chapter 4. Now I said push up that commit. We don't select a specific commit. We push an entire branch, as we've talked about. So I made that commit on the master branch, so I'll push that up. Git push origin, the only remote we have right now, origin master. Now if we head over here and refresh, we see, first of all, my most recent commit, begin chapter 4, 1 minute ago. We also see the actual updated contents, right? Chapter 4.txt is right there. Okay, so in the next video, I'm going to kind of walk through a GitHub repository, show you how we view the commits, the branches, diffs or changes, all that stuff. And then we'll get some more practice with pushing, and we'll talk about renaming to use the main branch.